Well, welcome back to the shed, folks. Had a bit of a disaster the other day. Sink overflowed, so the whirring you can hear is the dehumidifier. But another little bit of good luck was a friend of mine finding this little ITT record player in a junk shop or charity shop or thrift store in nearby Bexhill-on-Sea. And at first the only thoughts were that this KP 821 from ITT has an SC12H cartridge in it from BSR. Now that's an afterthought, that is, because most of them were fitted with an earlier and chunkier SX5M from memory, but not this one anymore. But inside it was absolutely awash with dust and filth and crap. Yeah. So it had to be dismantled and thoroughly cleaned. Also found that the main smoothing capacitor for the amplifier had corroded legs on it and corroded leads in, and didn't like the look of it at all, so I replaced that with something slightly higher capacitance. I think the original was, got a feeling it was only about 820 and I put 1,000 in it, so it should be okay. Well, it will be okay actually, because I've also used, instead of their original 25 volt one, keep in mind the DC side runs at about 20 volts in this without any surges. I've used a 35 volt one to be absolutely safe. One infuriating thing they did do, they never ever put a little spot on the controls, so you can't see when, for example, you've got the balance control set right. You can only trust your ears, which most of the time works, but it can be a bit annoying. But what they got and done with this one was to just sever the lead from the tone arm to the amplifier. And whoever had it before, I suppose they must have run it out through the 5-pin DIN socket on the back here, perhaps to a bigger amplifier. I don't know. Who can say? If only this thing could talk, I bet it would have a few rude things to say. And then you've also got the almost inevitable late 60s, early 70s 2-pin DIN sockets there. Now as they come, these come with two, well, to be quite honest about it, pretty ghastly speakers that form the lid, and inside each was a rather tinny 7x4 Alnico affair with a dome over the magnet, the sort of thing they would have put in the older televisions and reel-to-reel tape recorders, that sort of thing. And they didn't sound very good. And of course the trouble is, this hadn't got them, and you never see them on their own on eBay because, well, let's face it, they were junk. So thoughts turned to modifying this to run a different sort of speaker. Now the originals had to be 15-16 ohms, and they're getting a bit awkward to get hold of. Speakers of that high impedance. This has a very early microchip amplifier in it. There's a separate chip for both channels, so you daren't really run it on anything less than specified, because otherwise it's likely to go pop. They're not very forgiving, the early IC amplifiers. So what do? Well, what I've done with this is to put 9 ohm resistor in series with each speaker output, and so the amplifier still sees, in DC ohms terms anyway, about 18 ohms, 15 to 18 ohms, and she seems quite happy now to run the much more easily get holdable of 8 ohm speakers. So that might be something to keep in mind if you've got one of these and you've got a blown speaker, or you're just not happy with the sound. Because we didn't have the speakers, I've taken out the clips that were down here for them on both sides, and the plan is to put a little piece of mesh in from an old boombox speaker, which will allow ventilation and won't allow all the rubbish and dust to go in there, as it happened before. So there you are, that's what's been happening here recently. I have to say I haven't been too good of late. I actually spent a week in hospital. Came out of a rash because of an insect bite. Went to the doctor and he gave me one load of antibiotics, and I was fairly sure I was allergic to that, but I couldn't remember the name because they make the name so bloody complicated, don't they? I can't even pronounce it. A bit like doctors' writing. They say I could never be a doctor because my writing's too clear. Well, after a few days it hadn't done anything except get worse, so down to the doctors again. And of course, being one of these progressive modern surgeries, you never see the same person twice. So they dished up 2 more lots of antibiotics. I was to take 1 lot, and then when I finished those, take another lot. And guess what? They both came from the same family of penicillins that are bugging me up in the first place. And eventually I finished up in the local hospital for a week being decontaminated. Yes, lovely, isn't it? So, needless to say, I haven't been to the doctor since. I don't dare to. You know, I'm frightened of that place now, as you can well imagine I might be. Still not quite right now, and I wasn't quite right when a friend of ours from Yorkshire came down, and my wife, bless her, said, "Don't bring anything down to repair to him." Well, what does he go and do? Yeah, you've guessed it. Oh dear. And I was shattered after being in the hospital anyway. So the less said the better about that, I think. So that's what's been happening here. The dehumidifier is now whirring away, drying this bloody place out a bit. Mr. Kitty has got the hump because he's got dry skin, and the missus covered him in baby oil earlier on. It won't hurt him, but we were very careful to ask the vet, and we've also got some spray from the vet. But, oh dear, yes, he went splidoosh in his cat litter tray. God, dear, oh dear, that smelled evil, that did. Speaking of evil, how many more things like Barcelona will it take before people wake up and smell the coffee among the do-gooding brigade? And on that cynical note, I will away.